What's up again, everybody? Today we're going to talk about what I think are going to be the 5 most impactful generic cards that have come out of the Arcane Rising set. Now this actually was deceptively difficult to really narrow down to 5. There's actually like 10 or more that I could argue are going to be very impactful going forward in the constructed scene when you combine both Arcane Rising cards along with Welcome to Wrath cards. So it was difficult to narrow these down to 5. If I would have said like the top 10, that would have been a little bit easier, but when it's top 5, I'm gonna have to make a little bit more concessions towards some cards versus others. So with that in mind, I would love to hear your thoughts of your top 5 generics from the Arcane Rising set. The top 5 most impactful generic cards you think are going to come out of this set when it comes to constructed and tournament level play. Leave a comment with your 5 down below. Now before we get started, if you like Flesh and Blood content and if you enjoy watching these videos, please consider giving me a like and a subscribe. That helps push these Flesh and Blood videos out into the YouTube algorithm masses so more people can see this stuff and more people can get into this game. I would really appreciate it. All right, and now on to the list. For my 5th most impactful card, I'm kind of going out on a limb. There are a couple of cards that come to mind immediately that I think are really, really good, really powerful that I've already been putting into Arcane Rising decks. But this is a card that I think is going to be powerful simply because I know the ability and I know how powerful that can be in other card games, and I think it can be that powerful in this card game, and that is Chains of Imminence. Chains of Imminence is a super rare generic card that says go again. When Chains of Imminence enters the arena, name a card. The name card can't be pitched, played, or used to defend while Chains of Imminence is in the arena. At the beginning of your action phase, destroy Chains of Imminence. I also want to point out that this is always going to be red, so it's only pitching for 1, and it is a 0 cost card, so you don't have to pay to play it. Now, why did I pick this card? Well, I think this card is incredibly powerful if you have any skill in the hand tracking area. If you kind of know what your opponent's deck is going to consist of, know what their big power turns are, and what cards they're really looking to play and slam down. And if you've been kind of keeping track of how many cards that they've held over the course of multiple turns, how many cards they've used, and how the play style of their hero is, you can fairly well pin down what might actually be in their hand. And if you suspect at any point that they have one of those power turns coming up, you can just completely and totally shut it down with Chains of Imminence. That is a very powerful tool in tournament play, and I very much believe that this could make the 3 of list on just about every list that can come out. It doesn't matter what hero you're running, doesn't matter what your play style is. If you have the ability to shut off your opponent for a turn by guessing the correct things that are in their hand and just turning those things off, this can really, really disrupt and win you games in that way. So because I think that the power level and the skill level of this card is very high, I think this is going to make its way as a 3 of into tournament lists. Okay, on to number 4. For card number 4, I've selected another super rare card, and this one is selected for a very specific purpose. This is Rusted Relic. It is also a super rare. It's an action item. It pitches for 3 always, it costs 0, and this literally just has Arcane Barrier 1. So nothing flashy about this card, but no matter what deck you're running, even if you're running like a wizard deck, you're gonna probably wanna play Arcane Barrier cards. And if you really like the abilities that are on your equipment, if you like using those things to do very combat tricky or like just manipulating your resources tricks, then you want to put your Arcane Barrier protection, your Arcane protection in your deck somehow. And I feel like Rusted Relic is literally the perfect answer to that because you can get this out there early and you can make tons of uses out of it. It doesn't take up a slot in your armor, which I think is incredibly important. The fact that you can just include this in your deck, find it early, hopefully, by using Opt or other abilities like that that searches your deck for things. Play this down and have this be your way of defending against arcane damage, I think is incredibly potent, and I could see this one also being a natural 3 of in literally every tournament deck. Doesn't matter what hero or class you're running. Okay, for number 3 is a card that I actually think is going to be like a 9 of in most decks. Maybe you edge one way or the other for a few less, but let's talk about it. This is Fate Foreseen, a 0 cost generic defense reaction that either defends for 4, 3, or 2, depending on what pitch cost you're running, if you're running the red, yellow, or blue, but it always opts for 1. So why is this the third most powerful or impactful card for Arcane Rising? Well, generic defense reactions are, as we saw from Welcome to Wrath, widely used, widely played, and that was partly because of scarcity. There's not a ton of defense reactions in the game, and if you're planning on not dying at any point throughout the game, you're probably going to want to use a defense reaction or two to block some big attack from your opponent. And the fact that they're so scarce, in the card pool, means that good cards like this are obviously going to rise to the top of that list. Even if you don't plan to use the opt ability to its fullest extent, this is a defense card for you that can be played by any archetype, by any hero, by any class that gives you some positive effect. It allows you to take what's on top of your deck and either leave it there or move it to the bottom. So you're cycling. And cycling is powerful in card games, and defending is also good because not dying is how you win sometimes. And so this card I see making a very large impact on the competitive scene going forward, because I do expect to see this one mixed in with the unmovables and the sink belows of the world. Okay, we're down to the last 2 cards, and I would say that these are the 2 most impactful cards that we're going to find in this Arcane Rising set when it comes to competitive level deck building and play. And I bet you could probably guess the 2 that I'm thinking of. I'm curious what you think though. See if you can make that guess in your mind of what top 2 cards I'm thinking of, and let's see if you're correct. Number 2 for me is Command and Conquer. Command and Conquer costs 2 to play. It will always pitch for 1, which isn't great, but it attacks for 6. It's a generic attack action, so you can put it in any deck you want. Defense for 3, which is normal. And it says defense reactions can't be played to Command and Conquer's Chain Link. Like, they just can't defend with defense reactions, which are generally very powerful, as I just talked about with Fate Foreseen. So if you can't defend with defense reactions, how do you block this? Well, you literally have to take cards from your hand and waste them by just playing them down and defending. And if you don't, then if you have any cards in your arsenal, those are destroyed, as it says there in the bottom portion of the text. Now, you may just say, okay, well, I'll defend with like 1 card from my hand. It defends for 3. I'll take 3 from this. And I'll say, great, I just dealt you 3 damage, took 1 card from your hand, and I am good to go. And if that happens to be the, normal scenario, I'm okay running 3 of these in a deck. If, for some reason, you really care about what's in your arsenal, like if you're playing a class that really loves having things in arsenal, then all of a sudden, you care very much for this not to hit at all, and so you're spending 3 cards from your hand because this is attacking for 6, and most things in your hand block for 3. You're spending 3 cards from your hand just to keep that thing in your arsenal alive. That is extremely, incredibly powerful. So if you're playing a class that really cares about stuff in Arsenal, this is like a must-block scenario. This feels very much like one of those Crippling Crush cards from the very first set, if you're playing against one of those classes. So this is a very easy 3 of in a lot of different decks. Maybe you even run this in Wizard too, I don't know. Okay, so we are down to the final card. This, to me, is the most impactful, most important card in the set when it comes to generic cards, and I would say that if you get a box with 3 of these, then you should count yourself a very lucky person indeed. This is Art of War. Art of War pitches for 2. It costs 1 to play. It is a generic instant, which means you can play it on your turn or your opponent's turn, and it says choose 2, and here are your options. Pick 2 of these. Attack action cards you control gain +1 attack and +1 defense this turn, or the next attack action card you play this turn gains go again. Or, until the end of the turn, you may defend with attack action cards from your arsenal. Or, you may banish an attack action card from your hand, and if you do, you just draw 2 cards. So, the reason I think this is the most powerful card in the set is that you're going to play this in everything except maybe Wizard. Maybe you even do play it in Wizard, and you run like an attack action card like Command and Conquer so that you can use the last ability on it. Nevertheless, you're going to play this in just about everything. You're going to run like 3 ofs in just about everything. You're going to use this because it is just too flexible not to. It's just too powerful not to. Doesn't matter what kind of archetype you're playing, whether or not you're playing this like go wide archetype, which I feel like this fits wonderfully, or if you're playing like this fatigue archetype where you maybe have this in hand and you feel comfortable playing an attack action card down in your arsenal, and all of a sudden now you can play this and choose the attack action card you control gain +1 defense this turn, and you can play that thing from arsenal. Maybe you're playing just like this go tall archetype and you just play this so that you can gain a go again proc, or you just give +1 to everything that you're going to play here going forward. It just doesn't matter. It's just going to be good. No matter what you do with this card, you're going to have positive effects. And because of that, because of the flexibility and the sheer power that this provides for 1 mana, 1 resource, this is the most impactful card in the set. So what do you think? Do you think that this list is right? How would you reorder the list that I've provided? And what did I miss? I will tell you that I struggled with this list, cutting it down to 5. I had cards like Lead the Charge and Plunder Run like right there on the tip of the tongue. If I made this video a second time, I would probably swap out some of these positions and maybe even swap out some of these cards, because there are still great cards in this set. There are so many of them, in fact, in the generic portion that this list could be way longer if we wanted it to be. Let me know what you think in a comment below, and as always, everybody, thanks for watching.